couple of months ago I was watching a video by a guy called Night Scrapper UK where he was using a wok to boil plugs over a gas flame so that the plastic became soft and he could pull the brass pins out. That's these moulded types of plugs, because the brass is valuable and the rest of the plug isn't. I thought doing it over a wok was one way of doing it, and I thought a washing machine could be another way, and I thought I could do it on a 95-degree wash, but if I do that, you see, I'll have to interrupt the wash to get into the rinse. And then I thought, well, why not just use it as a boiler? It's got an element at the bottom, you can put water in it, and so I could just hotwire the element straight away. So I believe if I pull that off, and if I pull that off, and then if I put these cables on there in their place, we'll have a boiler. So I'm going to give that a go, put some water in it, and see if it works. I know the element works. It means that the rest of the machine will be redundant, but it should heat up some water. So let's give it a go. What I'm thinking is I'm going to tilt the machine back a bit. Somewhere like that, so that it holds the water in a bit. So I need to get something under the front of it. There's a hammer head, that should hold it. Got to fill it with water. Before I fill it the whole way, I'm going to just plug it in and see what happens. We should be able to hear it beginning to boil. Yeah, I can hear it. Better get some more water in then. Get these plugs covered up. So there it is now. I'll just leave it for a few minutes. Wonder how much water is in it. 10 litres, 20 litres. If it's a 3 kilowatt boiler, you can see bubbles coming up already. That's pretty neat. If it's a 3 kilowatt boiler, it should... No, it'll be about 2 kilowatts, 1800 watt, 2050 watt, it'll be something like that. So it won't be as strong as a kettle, but basically it's a kettle element in there. So let's leave it and come back to it if it starts getting hot. I expect it needs to be not boiling, but like 80 degrees or something. I don't know. Probably too hot to touch, so I might need gloves, or I can just use pliers. It's pretty neat, I haven't thought of doing this before. It's only been on a couple of minutes, but it's warm to the touch already, so I don't think this will take very long. This could be quite a useful trick. You know, if you've got an old broken, or, well, not broken, but an old washing machine in your shed that you're willing to take the back off and rewire. I've been agitating it a little tiny bit. As long as there's water on the element, it won't fail. It shouldn't fail. And give it a few minutes. I can see bubbles coming up periodically. So the idea is that we pull the brass pins out, and they should come out with a bit of wire or a bit of copper and wire attached to them. And once we've done a few, we can weigh the ones we've taken out, the brass pins, and weigh the plastic, and then get the total weight and the brass weight and see if it's worth doing it. Now there's a cost of electricity here, but a 2 kilowatt element running for an hour, which I can't imagine this will take an hour, would only be a matter of pence, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 pence. Can't see bubbles coming in there. I did take the precaution of earthing it, just in case. It's not like me to earth a washing machine when I'm doing experiments, but I thought this time if my hand's going in there, I thought it might be a good idea. So I wonder if it shows up on screen, but it's getting steamy. 54 degrees. I don't know if that's the water or a plug in the water. How this is working. Yeah, 53, 54, 44, 50, 53, 46. And so all I've been doing is giving it a little swish to mix the water so that it's not just heating one spot. It's had another 10 minutes and I've closed the door. There's a bit of steam. Let's see what we get here. 59, 54, 65. So give it a bit of a twist. 66. I have no idea what temperature it needs to be, so I'm just going to take one out and give it a go. This one, 60 degrees or thereabouts. Don't think that's going to make any difference to it. Oh, you know what? It does. Maybe that's enough. Yeah, it seems to be coming out at that. And that's the remainder. So that's the rubber coming off the back of it. I've never done this before. It's kind of a mixture of rubber and stuff. And those will be copper, tin plated copper, or chrome plated. No, it's unlikely to be chrome. So they pop out. This is a lot of work. And then you get this one out, a bit of copper wire and a bit of this and that. I guess it would make sense to get the fuses out first, and you're left with this ball of mush. I'll do another one. So further down in there, it just kind of hooks off, if it would. They're a little bit warmer. I've never done this before. Oh, there we go. That's kind of cool. Okay, it all just comes apart like that. There's a lot of tension in the grips here to get that off. I'm guessing as it gets hotter, it'll be easier to do. Like, I don't really want it breaking off like that, because that's no good. Well, it's not. It's got plastic on it, but yeah, there it is. Okay. Like, you're never going to get... Oh, I guess that's not true. You could get all the plastic off the brass, but there comes a point where you've got to decide if it's worth it. So this one, the rubber was nice and soft, but the hard plastic inside isn't. Whoa, it turns very rubbery. It's kind of neat. There we go. So there is a fuse in here, presumably, yeah. Fuse holders. It's a lot easier to scrap the regular plugs, I've got to say. And you get it out like that, that's it. That'll probably set up kind of hard again. You can see the point in doing this in batches. I just threw all my plugs in at the same time. Get the fuse out. You can just start on it. Last time it was easier to do it this way. Pull the pins off. The first time. See, if it's going to come off like that, it's no great help. And I wonder if you had a little shredding machine, you could probably shred these things then quite easily at this point. But that's as much as I'm going to get out of there, I think. Unless I try ripping the cables out. That's kind of a silly game too. You can do it, I'm guessing. Here we are. Now, it's kind of a foolish enterprise, I reckon, doing this, but 3 plugs. 4. So that one's come out, so maybe once they get hotter it'll be easier. Yeah, it looks like it. I'm not sure why. Okay, so it's only the live that should have the issue with the fuse. Let's just pop it straight out this time, that's better. How to get that bit out, or is it worth it? There it is. So that one's just come straight asunder there. I don't know if it's really worth getting those bits out of the center. It's only kind of for devilment, really. I can definitely see more brass in there, but you're going to get diminishing returns very quickly on this game. Every time I open the washing machine, my glasses fog up. This one's a bit stiffer. Yeah. So there's the whole gubbins coming out of this one, but it's still hard. So maybe it's worth throwing that back in. Ugh. There is an earth cable in there embedded, and looks like is it the live or the neutral cable. I'll throw that back in. That one's got a plastic earth. Not much point in doing anything with that. Bits of brass popping off there, but nothing much. So it's kind of a hard plastic inside. And a soft rubber on the outside. I don't know if it's worth going any harder than that. Any farther than that. That's the way you want them to come out, just straight out with the wire. Just like that, then that's the way. Yeah, so that's better. So this is probably the live, and that's the remainder. They're kind of neat. So you can abort this exercise at any time and just do a weigh-in. That will tell me where I am. So that's what's inside there. Bit of wire. Copper, brass, no brass there. But that's hard plastic, you see, and that's what's causing the trouble to get that off. There's a rivet going through there to in there. You could drill that out, but be verging on insanity. Although some people would say I've already reached that point. If I'm doing this, so some of them are just awful, by the way it seems. Here and now. Look at that. Right, so just popped all that out with the cables and the rubber. Strange and amazing. So these ones should come out from behind if you could get a purchase on them, because they're not riveted, just like that. So again, I don't know if I can bother getting those fuses out. I don't think it's worth it. This one's it's plastic, but it's not a big solid brass pin on that. It's plastic, but it's not rubber, this one, so not as easy, this Flymo one. Oh, there we are, broken in. So presumably I could have just done that from behind before. I'm wearing a waterproof glove, but it doesn't mean it's not hot. It still takes a fair amount of strength in the wrist to break these out. Some are just coming like that. Like I can see more brass in there, but it's quite a lot of work and it's quite hot compared to the regular plugs that you just unscrew. That's what I'm saying. And because it's rubber, it just twists off like that. There's the plug unit inside. You've got to separate this black bit from this white bit. That's possible, and then once you've done that, you can just prise this bit up. It's just mental, like. So I did some sums with regular plugs, and I found that I thought it was worth pulling them out. That's what you're left with, just rubbish. I'm not sure if I would say the same for this, now having tried it. Like maybe if you just do snaps like that, and if they'll give you brass for those pins that have plastic on them. There's a different shape of a one. And that one's just come apart quite easily. Oh, look at that. So I've had 14 minutes of dismantling them, and that's a long time really for, I'd say it's almost taken me a minute to plug, which is not great. Oh dear. And the washing machine's still full. There must be loads left in it. Right. So if we look at a very simple equation here, let's get these weighed. That's 700 grams of plug, plastic. And this side is about 270 grams of brass. That's very dirty brass. So let's say that's roughly a kilo total. Plugs on their own would be worth for a kilo about 10p. Plugs going as just light iron, which you're not really supposed to do under the waste regs, but the scrapyard won't care if you throw the plugs into a washing machine or something. You might get 13p a kilo. And then with this dirty brass stuff, you could probably, if you had like a load of taps and stuff, get a few kilos of this chucked in with it to bulk it out. What do we say, 270, so call it 250. Say that brass's price at the moment is about £2.90 per kilo, so that's a quarter of 290. You're talking about 75 pence roughly, is that right? Yep. So that took me, I don't know, 20 minutes to boil up. Now granted there's more boiled up, but it took me about a minute a plug to strip them. That's not worth my time. So if you have a look at my other video where I did the plugs by hand with the screws, they were quite easy to do. And I reckon I got about £6 an hour out of that. So you got to factor this up. If that's taken, let's give it 15 minutes for 75p. Well, then you're talking £3 an hour. The other plugs with the screws, doing that by hand, you have less mess, and they come apart a lot easier than this kind of dirty plasticky stuff, and you're not going to strain your wrist in the same way trying to pull on things. You're getting about twice the return off regular plugs. Let me know what you think. Tell me I'm a fool. I came back out again after my tea and finished up. It was a lot of work, and I've given myself a callus in here on my hand from using the pliers, and I was a lot faster at it, I've got to say, but we'll go through the numbers now. This is the basket of bits that came out. They're pretty grim as brass goes, but they would go as brass at my scrapyard. There's about 1 kilo there of brass, and there's about 4 kilos of plastic. And I didn't manage to get all of the innards out. You would be there for a lot longer, and I can't see that it's worth it. So sometimes the pins just broke off, sometimes the guts came out. It just depends on the plug. Sometimes you lost some of the pin, but I wasn't going to keep going because I would have wasted a lot of time doing it. You saw how long it took to do a relatively good job the first time, but I think the big pins are where the money is, or where the weight is. So I started with that. So looking down here, this is what we had before and some estimates that I made up. But roughly 5 kilos total of plugs. 5 kilos of plugs would get you 50p. 5 kilos of light iron would get you about 75p. That's just, you know, making up numbers, but it's in the right ballpark. 1 kilo of brass would get you £3, and then you'd have 4 kilos of plastic to chuck in the bin. Whether or not you could chuck that 4 kilos in as light iron and get another 60 odd pence, something like that maybe, so 360 total. That was about half an hour plus the original 15 minutes, so you're talking almost an hour's work there. It's hard, it's messy, you've got to boil them up, you hurt your hand. Compared to doing the plugs that come apart, the ones with screws, and this one happened to go through the wash and I tried pulling it apart but manually. But if it's got screws on it, you can get through them really quickly if you get a method going. You get all of the crosshead screws out straight away, you turn it over, you get all of the other screws out with the other screwdriver batch by batch, and then you just take them all apart. You can be through them very, very quickly. With these plugs here, I think what's catching it out is that they're solid. The other plugs are empty, there's nothing inside. These are solid molded rubber. So you're better off just starting by throwing them in as your light iron, I reckon. Chop them off when you're doing your cables, throw them in as light iron, and then they're out of your way. It's lashing rain outside. You tell me what you think. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, you know, you've got your evenings to spare and it's worth doing. And I agree completely. It's the same as stripping twin and earth cable. I'll strip twin and earth all day long if it's over 6mm. But at the moment, even 2.5mm I might strip if I've got a bit of time. But stripping anything below 1mm, it's not worth it. You're better off just cashing it in as household cable, I reckon. So, and stripping this kind of wire, well, that's just not worth it. E-Waste Ben did a video on that a while ago. It's not worth it. He gave up. He was doing an experiment on 10 kilos. He gave up almost instantly and just said it's straight up, not worth the hassle. So, there you go. Thanks for watching. See you later.